Was maybe because I was playing Fortnite for a couple hours. So everything's fine now. Everything's fine. Everything's fine. Obviously, still testing it on 3 clients in the same computer is still demanding, taxing. Close those. Hopefully this still works, no problemo. Poof. There we go, I'm in the docks. There may have been, you know what, I bet, oh yeah, wait, I don't need to have those. There may be some bug with getting location and like which pawn you are because I was in the ocean. But I've done that before, so that's new, but it's something worth checking out. In the meantime, I'll just get this character to shore. Well, actually, it shouldn't matter because these guys are already logged in. So I'll just take them wherever I want to have horses. Why not the moon elves? No, I want to go to the battling area for horses. So there's always a scare when you get crashes from memory resource or whatever. So you see that very much more responsive now with those controls since I set it up better. Get out of the water. Alright, there we go. Oh wait, I'll just dive in the water one more time, just because I can. Whee! I was strafing in midair, which makes it dive that way. Wonder if I should turn off the ability to strafe in midair when you're... Eh, that's whatever. Let me do it without the strafing. Whee! Anyway. That's always good. This isn't working on multiplayer yet, so that might be... I haven't like play tested that with multiplayer, so that's probably... possibly where the crashes are coming from. Anyway, doesn't this look beautiful? I've fixed the moonlight, by the way. You guys are gonna be happy with this. The moonlight is now synchronized with the actual moon itself now. So you see, it's a very far horizon shadow. You can actually see it a bit if I was in a lower area. You could see from the volumetric fog. But at least you know. You know. Oh, there you can see some of the new god rays coming up over the cresting over the... Ah, sorry. I think the backpack or something is blocking my visibility camera thing. I gotta check. Make sure that works better. Anyway. I came here to ride a horse. Oh, don't crash it. Yes, yes, yes. Alright, so I was like looking at the other continent. It had to load in the horse mesh. It survived. It shouldn't be struggling. It wasn't struggling earlier. It has nothing to do with the lighting. It's the 3 clients being open simultaneously. But it was working swimmingly earlier. I'm telling you. I am telling you. I have to... I think it's actually... The horse itself is from the marketplace. It comes with some basic animations, but I've done a lot of work on basically making the animations cooler. Alright, so let's go in... It's just like making the animations do stuff and doing some extra animations. I'm probably going to make my own... like, I would like to make a kneeling horse animation. So like you can crouch when you're a horse and it like gets low to the ground. I think that would be badass. So that would be one animation I want to make. Battling. Where's that horse dude? Is that the horse dude? There's the horse dude. So, shit. Where's the horse dude's dude? Dude. I guess it's not working. Doop. Oh, look at that. Dude's upside down. Well, it was working much nicer. Look at this client sees both clients. That's very bizarre. But aren't most bugs bizarre when you first implement them? Anyway, this is my first stab at making the horse work multiplayer. We can see it on this client. It's weird, this client doesn't see either of them. This one sees both being cool. That horse sees this. There you go. Meanwhile, this is the server over here. On another continent. Dive into the ocean. Bobbing around with the wave. I'm not moving any controls. He's just swimming with the waves. He's gonna go back now. Up the hill of the wave. Alright, I'm gonna go dive. Tomb Raiders swim around. You'll notice that when I right click, it makes the other characters face forward because it's recognizing the computer's input of right mouse button. So if I were to like go like this and then right mouse click here, it makes the character turn forward. It doesn't do that in actual multiplayer. I tested it a while ago, a long time ago, when I noticed that. But anyway, see my going up. Like fucking something gets really wonky when you're going up. Definitely when you're swimming straight down. Maybe it's because I'm just the torch is just casting crazy random shadows as you spin around. Whoa. Still gotta put some visibility flags on objects to make sure that they go with the camera. I think it's that backpack. I know the boats block the camera, which is to be expected. I don't think you'd want to be looking past the boat at yourself. I guess you should clip into the boat. If I go up here, see, it gets closer because of the boat. You would want that. Anyway, down to the ocean. Horse riding. This is the multiplayer dude. So most of the animations are working. Actually, for the client, I believe it looks like all the animations are working when the client does see themselves. Man, I had this and I was like, I got it working. I'm not doing this again. Let's see if I log back in as this dude. Let's see if it'll work. Well, yeah, of course the end game is release. Right now I have a little mini goal of putting out a little test to see how it performs once I have it performing well on my end with the features that I have. Maybe I should take out the horse and stuff like that for that test, but I figured I might as well just try to get it to replicate, give it like a day or two. But especially since I mostly got it. It doesn't need to be in there, but there's no point in testing it if I know it doesn't work yet. So I might just take that out and continue putting in a proper release. Okay, teleported in here. Got my stuff. Where's Horseman? Oh, he went running away. Is that the horse? There's the Horseman. Yay! I see him. Okay, it worked better this time. Alright, there we go. See, so it was a little laggy. Looks like actually the animations are working pretty great, so not perfectly for multiplayer. These are both clients here. So if I turn, it's not really, I think it's getting it backwards because I do some inverting in the math, so it's getting confused on client. It thinks it's the other direction or something. I don't know. No, I'm not giving myself a deadline. I'm giving myself goal lines. So for Example, what if it was text editor that was crashing it? Notepad or whatever this is. What if Notepad was crashing it? So these are my less important. These are like after this public test. These are the things I want to do for the public test. Actually, I don't know why this is checkmarked. It's all a question mark there because I want to experiment with how easy would it be to put this, basically a climbing mode, just like to use the rope mechanic that's built in, and just see how easy it would be to set something up. Hey, stop moving. See, the animations aren't perfect yet. It thinks it's moving. And obviously loading in had a bug. Didn't work the first time. Random animations aren't synchronized either. That doesn't really have to, but I guess it does. Like if you want to be like, yeah, the horse is rearing right now. What do you mean? None of them are rearing right now. Like, oh, but he's rearing on my screen. Like, oh, this dude's still just swimming over here, just chilling in the ocean. Let's leave him bobbing on the water. Yeah. So, add other building types is easy. I did figure out what was wrong with the building. My number lock key was off. So, nothing was wrong with building. I fixed it. And I fixed the door. The door works perfectly now. It was giving me an error when I tried to package, so I had to take off the child component like element of it being a building with a functional blueprint on it, which is really important, having blueprints on buildings. But I figured out how to like spawn it, and then I added an event on there for like when you place it the first time and once it gets it loaded in. Thanks man. Yeah, when was your last visit? How long ago? What was I working on when you last saw? So let's see, am I a builder? Probably not. I don't think I'm a builder anyway. I should make it so everybody is when they start, just for testing purposes. Yeah, I don't have it. I wonder if saving and quitting as the horse. Nope, just gets rid of him because there was no third-person blueprint there to get, so it just skipped. Oh, no, there he is. There's the old one. That's interesting. So it didn't destroy it because it wasn't a third-person blueprint, but it did. Okay, I don't know. I don't know what's up with that. Whatever. I wonder if that led to a crash, maybe. Probably. No, I'm just kidding. I don't think it did. Again, this is new territory. I just barely got loading into multiplayer's horses working before I was like, alright, time to stream. It's been 2 days. But mostly I was working on those swimming animations, which as you see are tight. So let's see, make a new character here, make sure it's a builder. Logging in's working, didn't crash anybody. Logged in real fast. Let's make a female battling builder. And by builder, I just mean like one of the origins that has some building blueprints. And for now, I just made it Traveler starts with materials and plans for a house. It's the only one I've implemented yet, so that's what I'm calling the builder class for now. But there's no classes. Lots of the origins start with materials and plans for building stuff. About a month ago, I was stuck on breaking and making post-process Shucks at runtime. I've been doing that a bit now lately. That's how I did my underwater camera effect, by changing the camera post-processing even. But yeah, I remember talking about the structs. All right. So, the door, right. Let's, so they'll show off that the smooth rotating works on client, and the re-snapping to origin. This was bugged when I did my pre-GDC video. It wasn't bugged, I just had num lock off. What was bugged was if I did like a weird rotation or whatever, and then went to build it, or went to open it, it would open back up at the default. Oh, so it's still spawning 2 of them. I wonder if it's doing that because it's like a multicast or something somewhere. Okay, so it's not perfect yet. But as you see, at least it's opening in the correct orientation. Fucking hell. Even though it's on a do once, I think that's pretty funny. Okay, so much for showing off that. Well, the building itself does work. That's good, isn't it? Man, I'm so deadpan today. I have a lot to be happy about. I'm turning off the torch sometimes too, because I just feel like it gets in the way. So one of my things was to add more building types, just like basically grabbing meshes and make them building types out of them, but obviously not functioning ones, because the functioning ones is much smoother now without 3 clients running on the same computer, and that's just from it being on the same computer. I've done the tests before with like 3 or 4 people connected and had no such losses in quality. But now you can see a better look at. I should have done the swimming animations like this at first. You can see the quality of the animations now. See, like swimming sideways actually has like a. Oh, you know what I should do? Let me show you the. No, I don't have the working combat system. I'm still researching like real medieval combat, and I'm not still. Rather, I should say I'm starting to like sort of officially study it. I've always been into it, and have been watching videos about it for a while now. But I'm just now like really getting ready to do that basically after I do this first test, which is just the first test just to see how it handles multiple clients, how many multiple clients it handles well, doing what things, you know, all over this big map. Just see how it performs in general. So I want to make a lizard person. Shit, I gotta log back in. How many have I made? 4. Okay, cool. I should delete that last video, eh? So as for combat is like actually a good question. Sorry, I should have didn't wait. Yeah, so here's some of my thoughts so far. Actually not. I have a lot of thoughts from earlier. These are just my thoughts from today. So this is one note. Swords power determines by the type of whether it's a cut or a thrust, the sharpness of the blade, its heaviness, the armor of the target, the strength behind the blow, the blade construction's quality, and the skill of the user. So that's some factors to consider. So aiming your attacks, you got legs, arms, you know, these are places to aim at. So attacks to legs bypasses your shield or parry and forces you to dodge or block if you're ducking, which means you can't dodge at the time, or block if ducking, can't, or block. Can't dodge. I think it's saying can't dodge, like if you don't have any dodge skill, you can duck to block. Okay, so it's saying me. I'm saying attack to just make this lizard man to show you. You could probably read some of that faster than I could. You can pause it and look at it again. But yeah, this is looking much better right now. Wait, this is the wrong side. I want a lizard man. Oh, actually no, the sea elf should work just fine. for showing the better. So basically, they swim faster. The sea elf and lizardmen swim. The wood elf too. They swim faster. So the wild elves and the lizard can swim faster. So actually, I just gotta get to some water. Crap. You can hear the footsteps now, hopefully. I've programmed them in to make different sounds based on the landscape type you're on. So it flickers around a lot as they're blended all over. I don't really know where in the continent I am, so this will be... Oh, look, some ocean. Okay. If I just go down, usually down leads to water. I'm a vapor. Oh no, I'm smoking pot. I have a medicinal license in New Jersey now because of the damn back pain from basically sitting at my computer for 12 hours a day when I first started doing this. I think some of my earlier streams are like legit 12 hours long, like several days in a row. And it's just sort of like, you know, a lifestyle, man. You know, you gotta like force yourself to get up and jog and get up and stand and stretch and do some yoga. And it's not even much, but if you have a normal job where you're walking to the subway and then walking from the subway twice a day, which I had right before that, that's good for you. That's all you need. So when I stopped doing that and started working on the computer for like 12 hours a day, it really got bad. And I have like legit, I wouldn't call it a condition, I would call it like a bone structure type. They call it a it's hyper flexible, but it has its own word. Not hyper. It's like, I gotta look this shit up again. Hold on. Hyper mobility, hyper flexibility. There was another word, but whatever. Hypermobile. Nah. Basically, my bones don't rest easy against each other, so my muscles are always holding each other up. So if you're active all the time and your muscles are all getting a good workout, which I've been doing more, then you're good. But if you're not, then you're bad. So it's actually pretty good for making sure I stay healthy, because I don't really have much leeway to just chub out, or I just start aching too much and my body's like, nope, you can't even lay in bed properly, you better stand up more often. So the plot helps a lot. That's what I'm trying to say. Yeah. What's hilarious is that I was already smoking a lot before, but I was really unhappy with the quality and like this, just like the very randomness of the sources. So and the difficulty in getting it. So changing the source, the quality actually made a change to my back pain level, on top of my anxiety levels and stuff. Oof, that is really nice. Oh yeah, so I have a diving animation, but I also have like a wading into water animation. So watch him as he goes into the water. Oh, well, it's kind of hard to see because the water is not translucent, but you see that he kind of like does his arms forward first. So every now and then. Thanks, Crazy Beast. Thanks. So diving in, even from this cliff. It's not like The Witcher where you have to press X. I'm just jumping. It measures whether I'm above water. Yeah, dude, I found like a really good blueprint project source example. And so this is a different water now. And yeah, all the reflections and everything look really amazing on it now. Actually, like, being lost out at sea looks like is scary. Turn that torch off. First person mode. Go up and down. So you see the post-process effect of the blue and the fog that I put on it when you're and the depth blur when the camera is underwater. So I'm measuring the camera versus the height of this. I can change the accuracy of the water too. I can make it even more high def, but it's a little performance cost, and that helps with the accuracy of the camera detection. Yeah, it's a waterproof torch. It's a magic torch. When you go underwater, it's bluish greenish because it's magic. See? That's how I'll explain it in the game. So the depth of field, I need to make it the focal range, because if I zoom out of it, he comes into focus. And that's where the focal range is. So if I'm close, it's actually the focal range is behind. So that's just something I need to do. Yeah, I totally need sea monsters. It looks like there's one already. Yeah, it's actually kind of, it is legit kind of scary being like, it's in the ocean waters. It's like all the instincts are like, no, no, get out of there, get out of there. But it's actually kind of calming being like, nope, it's just 3D simulation. I'm just bobbing around on fake waves here. Look at the way the freaking light reflects off of it. And with the fog shining through. Yeah, the smoke and the torch. Everyone talks about the torch, but I'm only using it as a light source for now. It's a bug testing torch. I will make sure the torch goes off when you go underwater. I'm just gonna write it for the record. Yes, the god rays I made like even better, basically. By just adding on the bloom and the, yeah, a lot of the, actually some regions I designed to look like Norway. I wonder if I'm in the Norway area. Actually, I think I am. So that's spot on, my man. Yeah, up there, that's supposed to be like Norway. Actually, I haven't tried swimming around in this bay at all before. It's pretty crazy. Like, it is a actual legit bay. I didn't even realize was in the game. Just stumbled upon it. I was like, I need to find the ocean. And it's like, oh, look at this bay with these amazing cliffs. This is like such a huge epic, like, we've got to design like some major like epic story around this. Yeah, I need to make it so that the distance fades out. I know what you mean. I don't know exactly how to do that quite yet, but this fog is interesting in that sometimes I think you'll start to see it. I'm below this light, so you're starting to see things wisp past. It's because I'm going into these clouds here, so I'm just going deeper. You can see the clouds moving past, right? So I could make them max opacity, and they'll actually block out the... Also, the volumetric fog gets thicker down here, so at nighttime it gets like impossible to see. But we're starting to get into, as you can see, I can't see myself anymore, even though I'm illuminated. It's just, I have to turn the light off. So everything's actually blocked down here. You can't see details. It's blocked and blurry. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like having a sense of there being a distance, I don't know, maybe it should just be blurred out completely. I might be able to do that with these cloud things. Just block out completely, like make their opacity max. As you see, it also, that cloud thing goes over the water surface above. Oh, I didn't even show you. So like, here's the swimming to the side animation. As a sea elf and as a lizardkin, it plays the full animation because you're going at full underwater speed. So here's a swimming forward animation. It's much more like, you know, I did the kick and the arms all by myself. It's not perfect, but it's pretty good, I think. Where am I? What? Whoa! It got really foggy near these cliffs here. You see that fog cloud? So it actually makes it. It's gulp. It's something I found on a tutorial, and they were like, "Here's the sample." And I was like, "Cool." And they're like, "Yeah, you're free to use it in all your projects." And I was like, "Cool." So, but it's basically like, can I remember? It's a post-process material blending over everything, and I think it's just like a. It's like it's supposed to replace fog. So I wonder if I can find a link to it. Yeah, so the sea elf swims faster than the other races. That's their advantage. So they can, you know, this is what I'm talking about. The races have their own So here, the torch is on right now, but you can't see the light for shit any further than there. You can't even see him. You can barely see it, and you know how bright that torch is. So this is what I mean about it is harder to see. It's deeper, dimmer. Yeah, I'm going even deeper, buddy. So something I have to fix is the orientation when you're jumping up or down while going underwater. I need to orient that towards your momentum, but I have to change it. The animation type. It's a bit of work just for one little visual thing. Basically, it looks like he's swimming straight up. That's something I did on purpose, but now I'm realizing that if you're swimming forward and up, which is something else I did on purpose, you don't want to be facing straight up. You want it to be modified by where you're going. So I have to just rewrite it a bit, and since I spent so much time writing the whole thing, it's one of those things I'm going to put off for a while. But yeah, let's go up to the surface now. Guess I'll just swim up with the funny spacebar thing, just to get up faster. We've made it to the cliffs at the edge of Gondor, or whatever, wherever we are. Don't I always go too deep? That's what I'm known for. And oh, look at that, the volumetric fog or something. I don't even know what. Yeah, you get some god rays from stuff down here even. Wow. So here's whatever. Horses underwater, yes, that is something I do want to do. And actually it's already implemented. I just have to write the coding the way I did for players. So basically more or less copy paste and then just, you know, stick the same animation on them. Because I looked at a video or two of horses swimming. They swim underwater, no problemo, if you've trained them. So maybe I'll make it a switch. Oh, it is moonlight. Oh, that's the sun. God damn it. I can't see shit. Yeah, now it's nighttime. You can't really look up from underwater, which is, I guess it's alright. So you see the similarity to the way I did design my flying animations for that flying game. I basically took the same concepts of just leaning, and then I did some arm stuff. So you don't, it's going that way. I could add some more kick too. The normal swim I made just by basically moving the arms around and adding the kick and leaning the whole thing over. Tilts up and down. That looks cool to me. Yeah, there's some amazing looking parts of this and some like needs more work. I think the really far distance, like you're saying, should be blurred out, but I'm not sure how to do that yet. I will get to that. Did I crash out? No, we're good. Interesting. On rep would mean that it'd be constantly firing, so I guess it did get there eventually. It's just saying it wasn't valid yet, maybe. Yeah, so the moon is now, let me get a character in there to just show the moonlight, what I've fixed with that. Let me make like just a regular on the ground character. Any one of them, just to show you. Actually, not anyone. One of them that's in the foggy area, which would be the desert. Where was it? The desert was pretty foggy. None of that.
Welcome to the hall.
I guess the desert. So let me just show you how the moon is synced up now. And just the performance is so much better with just one client. I guess I gotta go near the ocean on any of them. Should I mount up? I should. And of course the animation is not. This is totally placeholder. So just ignore that. I'm just trying to get to the fog. I thought this would be low enough to have a lot of fog. Maybe because it interpolates to the fog, and since I started at nighttime, it's not enough time. But here you can see that the sunlight over the edge of the water now looks a lot better. No flashing. You see that little circle inside the circle is the only problem I have. There was some weird thing with like the sunlight still appearing on the inner layer, even if I brought the moon inside, it would block it, but if I brought the sky larger, it wouldn't. It was really strange, so this is a way I found to make it work. I'll just chill down here for now. Let's get some fog. Should be low enough. I'm at the ocean level. I was already, basically. Hey, WR, what's up, man? I am good. I had a near crash. I had several crashes, like right when I started streaming, but all good now. Where's my volumetric fog that I just had? Well, you can see the shadow of the moon at least. I remember testing it earlier. Where was I where there was that much fog, and why wouldn't it be here? Because it's at the lowest points where there's a lot, the ocean level. I think this is where I was testing it. That's cool. No, it's all good actually. Like I got the horses replicating now in multiplayer, so that's really exciting. I did a whole bunch of cool swimming animations. Right now it feels like the freaking volumetric fog's not on. Oh, maybe it's not because of that overlap volume. I see the normal bloom and stuff, but Again, that's 6. The fog overlap volume I made while I was off stream too. It's one of the things. I lowered the level of it. So I wonder if maybe it's not triggering on begin play. Let's see, maybe is there volumetric fog now? I won't be able to tell until nighttime really, because there's only like 0.1 of it now. But it would be either enabled or disabled completely, and I feel like it looks different now. I feel like I see the volumetric fog. You can just feel it. It's in the air. Oh, see this? There it is. Yeah, there it is. Okay. Okay, so now watch the moonlight. There it is. It's a little, see, it's very close to perfect, but if you're just playing around, you can't tell that it's like not exactly perfect spot. Maybe just running around. That's moonlight. and this works all year round. I put it on a fast time speed and left it hanging for like hours, and then came back and it was like still syncing up. It's just, it's really impossible to get the math of doing it with a rotator versus doing it with a linear interpolate, to be perfect. So I figure it doesn't really matter. This is good, right? No weather yet. I do plan on making it like a mage-centric thing. I think that's the whole point of magic, is that it controls the weather. So there will be weather that influences combat, and then magicians can influence the weather. So I've kind of made the sun on overdrive so that you can't see that little circle inside of the circle. It's just kind of like, this is like a compromise. You see the circle inside of a circle. That's a compromise between all the various errors and weird glitches that you can get with using two skyboxes. And I figured this is the best one, because it looks pretty damn good like this. And the sun still, this all gets eclipsed by the moon. So the problem I was having was that this wasn't getting eclipsed by the moon. It's like, even though I took the sun out of the skybox blueprint, it's like still making a sun based on directional light, unless I disable the directional light. But if I disable the skyboxes, it doesn't disable that light. But if I make the skybox smaller, I'm not sure. I don't think it gets rid of it either. So it's very confusing what the light inside of the sun is coming from. It's coming from the directional light. So I don't know, there's something like a visible physical element to the directional light. But there isn't one for this one. There's no big white circle for this directional light, so I don't know what the hell it could be. And you have to have the, I mean, I did it a long time ago, and remember I had this error with like, because it's engine content, I edited it, so when I came back from GDC, I updated my engine, and since I had edited that in between last update, it got overwritten, so I had to rewrite my sky, basically from scratch. And that was the one part I couldn't get right, so that's why it's different now. Different but better. But worse but better. So, just different. Oh, I fixed the component shadows, the capsule shadows on the characters too. They weren't shadowing before, so I did that. But for now, we're just chilling, watching the desert weather. It's not really weather. Desert ambiance. Maybe we could do a thing. I wanted to look at the menu, the options menu, see how that shit's working. I'm just gonna investigate. Wonder where it was. Uh-oh. So much random crap that I've added. I haven't used yet. Literary clutter. A swap and a sword, so I have more swords and daggers to add and stuff. So a few more of those to make sure I get in there. Looking for the folder for the like options screen. There it is. It was just in my normal folders. There was no special folder for it. So whether no cacti, no. Alright, so Get game user settings. Local machine settings. Okay, so it is a function of those commands. Get game user settings. Distance quality. Distance epic checkbox. Handle toggle group. This is Matt Wadstein's jazz. So I'm really lucky from. So that's all done using that. So I'd have to make my own basically save game separate for that for server options. I guess I could just do that in the world save for server options. That makes sense. But do I want to put it in the same menu? I should just make a separate menu, I guess. So maybe when I do this, I just need settings. I need another. That already has one. All right. Let's put one of these things. Uniform grid panel. I haven't used one of these yet. Just size to content. How come I have like only one of them on top of each other? I need to make these size to content or something. Oh no, UI, it's not boring. I want the playable build to have the option to die by the cactus, no fall damage, by no drowning. Only way to die is a cactus. I think this is boring when you don't know how it works, like what I'm doing right now when you're playing with a new thing. How do you change the uniformness? So on top of each other, that's not how it's supposed to work. I guess because it's size to content. So make these. They are what? Where's the size of them? They don't have size anymore. The uniform grid slot. Oh, row 1, column 1. Oh, okay. Ah, that's cool. I get it now. There we go. Right, server options. git say server options, and for both of these, or maybe just for this one, I want the visibility, create binding. Whoa, 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 whoa! What? Wait a second. I saw something cool there. Just delete that real quick. Let's go back. Wait a second. What? You can do this? How do I have this information? Sub object properties. Is it because I have main save game, main player state on here? So I can do that? Yo, this is amazing. Let me just test this out. Let me wait a second. There we go. Whoa, this is cool as hell. Oh my god, you can just select it, you don't have to write the code. So wait, I guess I do have to write the code because I don't have just an is server. Okay, I'll create a binding. That's good to know about, though. Not interactive for obvious reasons. So why do I just have this here? I don't feel like I'm not using that. I don't know about that. Let's do get owning player state from there. I feel like, let me see if I find references. Yeah, it's not none found. I feel like that's just something I did once. I'm gonna leave it so I don't break something else by accident. So actually, I just want like switch has authority. No, you can't do that here. Get control pawn. Controlled pawn from the owning player. And I want to just say if it's the same as, because on the game mode, I think game mode or game state, I have a variable server host. There you go. And that is a player controller, so I don't even need this, I need this. So does it equal the owning player controller? If true, visible. Wait. If true, visible. And I guess if there's no game mode, if you can't access it for whatever, then you're not the server. Anyway, okay. Try that. Just to see if my server options button works. Okay, it was there on the server. Which I guess means I was able to match the pawn, which means it's working, I guess. But you know, you never want to commit to saying it works until check on the others. Cool. Hey, wait. Oh. What the hell? It worked until someone else logged in. Oh. I was like, why am I jumping funny? Like, oh, I was hitting invisible buildings. Yet to be seen. Yeah, only the builder can open it. I forgot about that. Looks like it only spawned one. At least now. So that server pawn variable isn't getting saved correctly. Love the way the ships look at the fog and the ocean popping around and everything. So this doesn't do anything yet, obviously. But keep it open for now. See what happens. Oh no, I can't. Yeah. Alright, I can afford to put YouTube back on. That shield one was good.
Okay, this is going to be a quick video on the pros and cons of thrusts. Thrusts, of course, are very straightforward. I mean, it's the most direct kind of attack you can make. A cut always has to travel further, whereas
Oh, this guy, he's like super fan.
you know, a line
I'll stand there
is
and do nothing for your videos.
the shortest distance between 2 points. One of the drawbacks is the thrust doesn't have stopping power. It's lethal, of course. In fact, it was generally considered the more.
Okay, so it still worked on the is locally
kind of
controlled.
attack because they just didn't have the.
I really want to be able to look up
knowledge
at that
the time,
fog.
technology
I
to
gotta figure
deal
out how to
with
make that work
things
better.
Like internal bleeding and the stab wounds were very hard for them to fix. So there's that. But if I say I catch him in a moment unaware and I run him through, he's still gonna continue his cut. There's nothing physically stopping him from executing that cut. He's gonna die, yes, he has a sword in his chest, but I probably also don't have a head anymore. Whereas with certain cuts, you can completely avoid that. If I see him throw a downward cut and I just cut at his arms, they're gonna be gone. It's not gonna happen. Also, cuts to the legs.
All right, there we go.
He throws that cut
Cool.
at me, and I sidestep and I cut to his leg. And ideally, sidestepping already takes care of that. But even if I don't, this would just collapse his structure. Suddenly his leg is gone. He supports his weight on his leg. Suddenly it's half cut through or entirely gone. He collapses. He cannot execute that cut. So it's safer in that regard.
So
However,
when you click on the button,
in some situations, this can be very safe if you have constrainment. If he is in long point, I'm here and I get
we'll check again.
This is a
can't
covered
do.
thrust, so this is one of the safest things I can possibly do, because it doesn't
So
matter
just
how much
deal
he
with it then.
struggles at that point. If I have constrainment, he can push as much as you want. It's not going to happen. And as I push in, I'm just forcing his sword to the side. So absolutely nothing he can do. So that's a good thing. One other drawback of the thrust is it requires more accuracy, because since you are going in that line, you're aiming at a point, basically, whereas the cut
So
is
now I need
an
to make
entire
that server
arc. It
options
covers
widget.
everything. If he tries to sidestep, this is still getting him. Whereas with a thrust, if I thrust at him and he sidesteps, there we go. Of course, the thrust also works from more covered positions. Like, for example, if I am in long point, I can't cut from here, not without first going into another guard. So I can thrust from here, however. There are some positions from which I can thrust but not strike. Let's say I throw an undercut and he steps back. Throwing another cut would take a lot more time than simply chasing after him with a thrust. So obviously, pointing out pros and cons is not trying to argue that you should use one more than the other. No, cuts and thrusts are just, they go hand in hand. You need both. That's pretty much it. So thanks for the help, Stuart.
I kind of missed some of that.
In that line, you're aiming at a point, basically, whereas the cut is an entire arc. It covers everything. If he tries to sidestep, this is still getting him. Whereas with a thrust, if I thrust at him and he sidesteps, there we go. Of course, the thrust also works from more covered positions. Like, for example, if I am in long point, I can't cut from here, not without first going into another guard. So I can thrust from here.
Still widget switcher.
There are some positions from which I
trouble
can
with that tabs
thrust,
now. Let's
but
do
not
tab
strike.
control.
Let's say I throw an undercut and he steps back. Throwing another cut would take a lot more time.
I haven't used this
than
stacking
simply
on top of
chasing
each
after
other
him
thing.
with a thrust. So obviously,
This
pointing out pros and
widget speed
cons
now, I don't.
is not trying to argue that you should use one more than the other. No, cuts and thrusts are just, they go hand in hand. You need both. That's pretty much it. So thanks for the help, Stuart, and thanks for watching.
He does some good videos just about general stuff that just explains like how it should behave in general. Best weapon against giant monsters. Good sword for home defense. Maybe I've exhausted all of the good ones. I watched them before streaming it. Might as well put this on for you guys. I know it, but it's good to know.
Let's talk about sword terminology. There is a lot of confusion in role-playing games.
So I do want tab control. In general, I do want the tabs.
Swords are often incorrectly named. Their different types are confused, used interchangeably, all kinds of things. And I'm hoping to clear up some of that confusion with this video, but keep in mind that I will be deliberately limiting it to straight double-edged swords from the Middle Ages and Renaissance, simply to make it more manageable. If I were to try to tackle all historical swords in one video, it would probably be 3 hours long or something. It's just too much. Also, I won't actually be showing swords in hand, simply because my current collection doesn't include any historically accurate replicas of Renaissance and medieval swords. I have some ancient and early modern swords, and I used to own some historically accurate reproductions, but I was sadly forced to reduce my collection. I'm trying to build it back up. I will, however, be showing you pictures right there. And also what I do have is a synthetic sparring
I don't really
sword,
need tabs.
long sword,
just need
and let me use that to
like
just quickly clarify something.
Try
about
another
the
uniform
parts.
grid panel.
There's also occasional confusion. If you just want to divide the sword up into 2 sections, that would be the blade and the hilt. The entire assembly here is the hilt, and the hilt consists of the crossguard, also called quillions, the grip, and the pommel. Sometimes grip and hilt is used interchangeably, which is not quite accurate. Okay, so let's move on to the question of how to classify swords. I have some notes here to reduce the rambling, hopefully. And the question is, how exactly do you do that? How do you classify them? By what criteria? There are several possibilities. You could classify swords based on time period, blade shape, hilt shape, purpose, and probably a variety of other things as well. Length, weight, all kinds of things. There is one typology that the historian Edward Oakeshott has come up with, which is based on physical form, but outside of the community of history buffs, it's not very well known. It just names swords using numbers. You know, it's like a type 10 or a type 14.
Another canvas panel
Roman
first.
Numbers. So it's less palpable than other terms and not as easy to remember.
Alright, actually this is not going to be an easy video to put in the background. Ew, I have to scroll back down through all the videos I've seen. Let's go back earlier. Probably had more interesting general topics. Oh, this is 4 weeks ago. Let me just do all of his videos. Cons. My favorite ring. Oh man. Not my kind of stuff. I'm just here for medieval. Hang out with Sword Sage. Pros and cons of bronze swords. We're past bronze swords in this game. Maybe I should go buy and play this like other historical
You remember
weapons,
Merle Dixon,
self-defense
right?
tools. What? I did watch a cool video, but it was a video you'd want to watch about sickles. It's just all just generic sword stuff. Yeah, that's why I was sort of... You had like one really good video about medieval combat that I couldn't find. Just keep going through with a list where I was at.
Well, since there was a bit of confusion in the comments after my helmet shooting video, I figured it would be good to talk a little bit about crossbows and firearms and armor to hopefully clarify a few things. So, first off, whenever I show the crossbow, there is usually some confusion as to how it performs, which is totally understandable. When you hear 350-pound draw weight, you expect an extremely powerful crossbow. However, medieval crossbows have a very short draw. Now, I made an introduction video.
Not really. I don't really have many actual tutorials.
I explained this in that video. I won't repeat too much.
I've done one tutorial about like movable widgets. I'm not gonna make this one movable though, because I don't feel like bothering.
Because
basically, so you can move it around the window.
Crossbow back only such a short distance compared to, say, a longbow, which you draw all the way, you know, from.
As normally you would make all your widgets a child of a blueprint that can move around the window, no problem. But
that's much more distance. So the bolt or quarrel has a lot more time to accelerate because, or a lot less time, I should say. The arrow has more time to accelerate compared to the bolt or quarrel. So it just cannot pick up as much velocity. So that's why a 350-pound crossbow is equivalent to about a 70 or 80-pound longbow. It's quite a difference. So you have to keep that in mind.
Really don't need this. I just need a vertical box
bow isn't
and horizontal boxes in it.
So for armor, if it's sufficiently thick, it'll hold up pretty well. If you want an armor penetrating crossbow, we're getting more into the, say, 800-pound range. There were even ones as heavy as 1,200 pounds or even more. So for those, you would need a windlass to span them. There are different spanning methods. I don't think I mentioned all of them in the introduction video, which I should have, I guess. But you have, the earliest crossbows were hand spanned. So you would just, in case of the very earliest ones, you would just step on the prod, which is the bow itself, and with your feet, and then you would just pull the thing up with just the strength of your arms and back. Then you have the goat's foot lever, which is the device that I was using. So that again hooks into the string, and then you have this long handle that provides a longer lever, so you're able to exert more force that way, and then you are able to span it with one hand, whereas even if you were to use both arms and try to pull this, you would have to be very strong to pull that. It's much easier with the goat's foot lever. And then there is also the Kranikin, or Kraniquin, however you pronounce that, which is again a device that hooks onto the string. Then you have a crank that rotates horizontally and it clicks into place as you rotate. So there are notches that the device clicks into so that the string doesn't, you know, move back forward when you stop cranking. So it just goes in increments, click, 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 and then you just crank it that way. Windlass also works pretty much the same way. You have two cranks on either side, and you have a rope system that winches up. It's pretty much like a modern winch. So you wind up the rope, and thereby you slowly span the crossbow, and that's where you can handle draw weights of over 1,000 pounds. Now those would be far more effective at penetrating armor than this one. Now this is still the 350-pound crossbow that I have is still considered a battlefield crossbow.
so it would still have been used.
This one should be
but it's really more against male or ideally
just
unarmored
10.
targets. It's really not much of an armor penetrating crossbow.
paste.
Quite often, people think that crossbows were developed as a specific anti-armor weapon. But from what I understand, that's not true. Seriously, my camera really likes to mess with me. This time the battery didn't die because I replaced it right before starting the recording, but now I suddenly have a writing error on the SD card. For fluff's sake, I can't work like this. Crossbows came up very early. There's a very early example of a Greek crossbow, and gastrophetes, which translates to belly bow. The way that works,
this one.
You basically span the crossbow by leaning on it. So you have a piece pushed against your belly, and you would use your entire body weight to push it down and cock it that way. And later they came up with other designs as well. The Picts had crossbows already. There's, for example, this 9th century image of a Pictish crossbow, and at that time there was no full plate armor.
The Picts are the Dark Elves,
deal with male,
sea people, basically.
if that, I mean, many warriors couldn't afford that.
Far northern,
So
beyond the wall.
Armor piercing really wasn't the primary purpose of the crossbow at that time. And so moving on to firearms. You might think that firearms were developed specifically to defeat plate armor, but not even necessarily. I mean, the first firearms were cannon, so those were siege equipment. That's a different story. I mean, yes, it would get the job done if an armored knight was struck by a cannonball. Yeah, of course, it would do the trick, but that was not the primary purpose. And the very first
Actually, this isn't even a server option. Shit.
I mean, they weren't super
Ocean quality is supposed to be like a...
That was partial. Well, at least as far as I understand, it was really partially
like a personal setting.
a weapon of psychological warfare, because it was new, it was scary, it was loud and smoking and belching sulfur like Satan's at.
If I can just take...
You can't necessarily say that
this.
the attempt to deal with
Watstein's shit.
plate
He has
armor
a
was the primary motivator behind
tab
the
here
development
somewhere.
of firearms. And in fact, armor did stand up to guns for a while. There is 17th century armor that was designed with that purpose in mind, and it was actually tested, and they had dents from bullets.
Video, gameplay, audio.
And proved
How do I
that
get to
they
the other
actually
windows
could
here?
withstand musket fire. There's of course also the issue of range, because a lead round ball isn't the most aerodynamic thing in the world, and they lose velocity relatively quickly. They are still dangerous at longer range, but if you're wearing armor, there are overall a lot of factors
it's player
to
hosted.
consider, not just with early firearms, but also with
Like, there's no
modern
Twitch
firearms.
reflexes. There's no, like...
Even within
It's all
the
like...
same
It's more like a
caliber,
simulation strategy
there are
game,
so many
RPG, D&D, dice rolling.
I mean,
It's not like a
for example,
action combat.
45 ACP, which in this case wasn't able to
But yeah, it does
penetrate.
work with multiplayer on
Has
Steam
quite a bit of variation.
internationally
You can use
if you change your
heavier
settings.
bullets,
But yeah, it does work.
lighter bullets, more powder, less powder, different types of powder. Especially if you hand load, you can tweak it in all kinds of ways. It makes a difference whether you have a full lead bullet or a copper jacketed bullet, a full metal jacket, or there's so many variations, hollow point, and this and that and the other thing. So I think you could probably come up with a 45 ACP load that would punch clean through those helmets, just like some lighter 9mm loads might not be able to. But again, the most important thing for armor penetration is really velocity. If you can get a smaller projectile accelerated to higher velocities, it's more likely to go through. So yes, you can come up with medieval or early modern steel armor that does withstand gunfire. Some gunfire. It depends dramatically on, for example, whether it's a handgun or a rifle. Rifles are always, or muskets also, long arms generally are always going to have a lot more power because of the longer barrel, which utilizes more of the pressure from the burning powder, and also they're made sturdier so they can tolerate larger amounts of powder, so you know, more powerful explosions, if you will. And so there are lots of different variables to consider. Some steel armor can even withstand modern firearms, but the main problem is you need fairly thick steel for that. And that's also the kind of problem that they ran into in the Renaissance when they developed armor for use against firearms. They made it pretty heavy because they had to increase the thickness sufficiently. They actually discarded the limb armor, especially the legs, because it saves weight, and weight on the legs is very tiresome. So they would then just come up with 3/4 suits or harnesses, and that, you know, helps keep the weight down to an extent, but it is still not the most convenient thing to carry around. This may also be part of the reason for the whole stereotype that armor was super ridiculously heavy and you couldn't move in it properly and all of that. Some later armor was pretty heavy, but early medieval armor was really nowhere near as heavy as people think, and it was far easier to move in than you may think. But that's getting too tangential, so let's leave it at that. So I hope that provides a bit of extra information and context for those videos, and otherwise, thanks for watching. Hope you have a good one.
Hey, what's up, my friend Calic and I here. In a moment, I'm going to step into my office here at my home and pull out my computer and show you exactly, you know, how it is that I went from barely scraping by working in a coffee shop to creating a life that I love. It revolves around the things that I'm passionate about. And before we get into that, though,
well, since there was a bit of confusion.
No. No, wait. It was that guy's the first result too. This one. Alright, I already watched that one. Here we go. This is the kind of video I want to watch.
So here's something that has often been requested on my channel. Axes. Yeah. It's finally time for me to talk about the peculiar traits and pros and cons of axes versus swords. First of all, one of the main reasons why you would on a historical battlefield carry an axe rather than a sword is, well, purely economics. An axe has always been a lot cheaper than a sword. It's much easier to make, it requires less material, well, less metal at least. It's really just the axe head that is a little bit of metal, and this one even has a bit more than a lot of axes would have. If you don't have the hammer, it's really not all that much material, and the wooden handle or shaft is very easy to make. It's also very easy to replace. If it breaks, well, you just put another one in there. So it's pretty easy, whereas a sword requires significant craftsmanship and a long time to make. It's more susceptible to quality issues, if you will, because if the material is bad, too hard, too soft, you know, poorly tempered, poorly assembled, things of that nature, you will have more problems with this than with that, because, well, let's face it, it's just a fairly thick piece of metal. It doesn't have to be of super high quality. It's thick enough to not break, and also it's not as dependent on a sharp edge as a sword is, because the sword, the blade doesn't have all that much weight, so the blunt impact is really not that much. That's something that people often underestimate, or rather overestimate the power of a blunt impact strike of a sword, I should say. And an axe, well, even if it gets dulled, it's still gonna do quite a bit of damage to hack into someone with it. By the 15th and 16th century, it became pretty usual for even just commoners, regular foot soldiers, to have steel swords and plate armor. So by that time it wasn't really that relevant anymore, but before, the sword was really a noble's weapon. so the commoner had to pick up something else. And they may very well have had an axe, a tool axe, because, well, that's pretty handy for a variety of tasks, chopping wood and carpentry and things like that. So you can use a tool as a still relatively effective weapon. And also, an axe doesn't require quite as much skill as a sword, because, well, edge alignment is still important, because if you kind of strike with it when it's very much off center, it's still likely to bounce off. But even so, it has a bit more heft towards the end. So even if you were to
I guess I'll
hit
just
them
have to
flat,
redesign
that
one
would
of these
still
buttons from scratch. It's kind of
cause
annoying.
Considerable damage against bone, hard material in general. And speaking of hard material, an axe is generally, I find, a little more effective against something that offers a lot of resistance.
Okay, there we go.
Like if you were to, let's say, try to cut at soft tissue, like the abdomen, let's say, with a sword, that would be pretty effective, because you could essentially gut them, which is very nasty, of course. With an axe, on the other hand, it wouldn't be as effective, because it has a pretty short cutting edge.
Okay.
So it's not much of a draw cut, really. It's much better at burying itself into a relatively dense, heavy target. Like if you were to chop into the chest, yeah, that would cause a lot of damage. And it might get the axe head stuck, which is a bit of a drawback. Then again, swords have also been stuck in enemies' bodies, so yeah, that's always a bit of an issue. The most striking difference, no pun intended, between an axe and a sword is the balance. Because the point of balance is very, very different. It's basically inverted, because you have most of the weight on a sword here, not just because you have the guard and pommel, but also because a properly made historical sword has a distal taper, meaning that it is thicker here, and then it becomes thinner towards the end, and that results in a point of balance being fairly close to the hilt. In this case, it's about here, whereas an axe is basically the exact other way around. Point of balance is very close to the handle, because of course that's where all the mass is. So what that means is it's a bit more strenuous to use with all the weight at the end. So that means that you have a lot of impact force when striking something. It can be quite devastating, but it also means that it requires a lot more energy to actually stop the weapon and redirect it. So you would actually kind of keep it swinging, and instead of trying to, after a powerful swing, to stop it right here, which you would normally do with a sword because you want to stay in a guard position, instead you would just bring it back up and just basically keep swinging it in circular motions to get the most out of the momentum, so you don't have to, you know, put that much energy into every single swing. And by the way, that's also something you can do with a one-handed sword to conserve energy. But the drawback of that is that in that moment when you're kind of swinging it back up, even though you are bringing it back up into a guard position, but you are kind of vulnerable when your weapon is back. So if your opponent just evades that strike, like sidesteps, backsteps, whatever, and then as soon as you're trying to bring it back up, then they attack, yeah, that's a bit of a problem. So an axe is simply not as agile as a sword. It doesn't feel quite as lively in the hand, although you can mitigate the effect to an extent, because it depends on, well, how much of a lever you have. If you're holding it all the way back here, that's the most powerful swing possible, but that also requires the most energy, whereas if you hold it further up here, it's much quicker to use, but that of course doesn't have quite as much power, and also the reach is severely lacking. But that can actually be an advantage if you get into really close quarters. Then you can actually slide up all the way and can do draw cuts, push cuts, even kind of punch with it, things like that. And one of the major advantages of an axe is the 90-degree angle here, because that makes for an excellent hook. You can hook an opponent's blade and pull it out of the way. you can
So,
hook an arm, say, pull that. You could, for instance, hook it in the back of their knee and pull. You could hook the shield out of the way. Speaking of which, shield and axe make for a very good combination because the shield actually compensates for the drawback of the axe, namely that it's not all that quick to respond to attacks with, and it's not the greatest at parrying. So if you do that with a shield, you cover yourself, you parry attacks with the shield, you kind of swipe into the side, and then you come in with the axe. Things like that, that works extremely well. So it was definitely a somewhat popular choice on the battlefield. Speaking of parrying with just the axe, that still can work fairly well because the nice thing about it is that an incoming cut.
so this was the blueprint that was giving me problems before when I had the blueprint
like
compiler
that,
thing. I wonder if it
or
was
axe
the
head.
memory
And
running
the
it,
nice
or if
thing
it was
is
that blueprint compiler
this, of course,
setting.
won't damage the axe. It's way too thick there. That doesn't really have any effect on it. Whereas if a sword edge crashes onto this, yeah, that's most likely going to damage the sword edge quite a bit. Whereas this here, really not that much of a deal. This is a bit more robust in general. And finally, some remarks about the handle. This is a solid hickory handle.
It's gonna take a minute.
And trust me, there's no way you're going to cut through it in one strike. Especially not when your opponent is actually holding it, and when it's just firmly planted in the ground, it's a bit easier to cut and damage. But when it's actually held in the hand, yeah, guess what? As soon as you strike it, it's gonna move to the side. It's gonna take a lot of the impact away from it, or a lot of the force. It's gonna redirect it. So yeah, it would be pretty difficult. It's, of course, it will be damaged. It is just wood after all, and it will be, you know, scratched and dinged up and have some cuts in there, some chips.
I think I should try that blueprint compiler
it will be necessary
thing
to replace over time,
again.
of course, but any kind of weapon gets damaged.
Because it was making everything run faster
like I said, it's
last
just
time I
not
enabled
going
it.
to
Maybe I have to enable it
cleanly cut in half
when I
in
start
one
the engine.
swoop, like you see in the movies, which that simply doesn't work. And also, it's not that likely to break, at least if you're using proper material. Ash wood was pretty popular for those. It works quite well. And yeah, I think I have covered most of what there is to say. There's always something more you can add, of course, but yeah, just some of the basics. Thanks for watching.
Metatron guy.
Hello noble ones, welcome back to my channel. This is the Metatron speaking. Today I'd like to talk about swords versus maces. Alright, then here we are back with one of my videos that we can use to discuss and compare different weapons used in ancient times. Now the other day I made a video that was about polearms versus swords, and today we're going to talk about swords versus maces. Now, whenever we talk about these things, and I think that all these topics are interesting, but one thing that is often misunderstood is the fact that there's no better weapon. So it really depends on what you're going to do with a weapon. So in this case, for example, a sword or a mace. When we talk about maces, maces are blunt weapons, of course, and we've been using these kind of weapons for quite a lot of time. But it seems like, and it's commonly accepted, that they have become quite popular in the 12th century. Now, does that mean that there were not examples of maces before? Of course there were, but when we talk about the maces with flanges, they did become more popular in the 12th century. The reason being metallic armor.
This would work for the server.
Any kind of blunt weapon is that they do give you a huge advantage against the metal armor. maces were actually invented in the Upper Paleolithic. So we're talking about, of course, it's a simple club, adding just spikes of flint or obsidian. So we're talking about a weapon that's been around for a really, really long time.
This would work for server options, but for any player option to affect the map,
period. And that's because a disc shape actually
have it from
provides some
overlaps.
crafting capabilities. But the idea was short-lived, preferring a full blunt weapon for its use, particularly in the Middle Ages. There are, however, some
you just do like
examples
run
of
on
flanged maces already
owning
in the
client
Byzantine
from
Empire.
here,
so we can't really say
from the
that
game
they are
mode, basically.
entirely a 12th century kind of weapon, but they have become more common, particularly after men-at-arms started wearing armor. The reason being that armor is very effective against edged weapons. A mace instead, and any kind of blunt
I could just make it a server option for now.
very effective
Have it affect everybody.
armored opponents because of the fact that they can deal a really strong force within a very small area, and with that they can bypass the plate armor, the protection the plate armor grants, and deal damage regardless of the armor that the person is wearing. Flanged maces instead, because of the flanges, can dent the armor, damage the armor, and penetrate. So without going too much in details, because I want to make this video rather short, there are several different kinds of maces, of course, also depending on what country we're talking about, what period we're talking about. But to have an overall idea, we can consider one-handed maces and two-handed maces, and then of course there were infantry maces, which were shorter, and cavalry maces, which were longer, because they were supposed to be used on horseback in order to grant.
Have to save it
reach.
too.
Also, often in video games we see maces made
It's
in
a complex thing to be adding here.
That is actually not wrong, because not all maces were made of steel, not all maces were...
This guy's just going to be distracting me. So when a client logs into the game mode, can I get some info from that? Controller, yes. So when a client logs in, call this, and then we can bind a new event. Actually do this. I have to make a new one here. Let me try that setting again just for now. Willing to bet I was just out of memory. So now watch, if I do add a new event dispatcher, call it server option 1. So compiling on here. I remember last time I had like alt tab for like a couple minutes, but now with that checkbox set, it's done. Now I'm curious if the game will play after, well, it did play, and it played faster last time too. But then when I restarted the editor, and came back, it crashed. But I think it's because I was playing Fortnite for a while and left my computer on and didn't do anything. So let's just see what happens. Why do I hear birds? There shouldn't be birds anywhere. It's kind of weird. Oh, logged in successfully. Okay, so shit's working. Oh, I can see that it enables one, it disables the others. That works at least. Uh-oh. So when you hit save and quit, oh my cat. I guess because it's full screen, I could make these full screen. Let me continue just the functionality for now. That's kind of pointless, minuscule stuff. Right. Basically just wanted to do a different one here. Just to replace it. There we go. Temporary. Placeholder, so I remember to do that there. Okay, so on ocean quality event, I want, why does this have a speed? Oh. Okay. Okay, now I have 3 different execs here. And so from special options, when I set check state, we'll do get owning player, get controller, Oh, that is the controller. Okay. It's called Call Ocean Quality. High, medium, low. 2, 1, 0. My cat, sorry. Doesn't want to be let down. It's like, no, carry me while you work. Alright, so on the maps, we've communicated from the menu to the game, no, to the controller, and the controller vis-a-vis straight to the map with this by the game mode using client login, accessing each time a client logs in. We're getting that controller. Wait, I want this here. So cast to main player controller. Yes, there we go. Now we're communicating to it. I mean, it's either a reference or an object or something. I don't know. So now on 0, let's go to the map itself. Oh, I actually have to go to the map now. Oh shit. Martin Shkreli is denied minimum security camp and sent to federal prison in New Jersey. That's where I'm at. Okay, so the ocean. I can just click on it right here. I'll click on it here, ocean actor. So now with it selected, I can go here, create reference to ocean actor. Let's see if I can set static mesh. And I just want this to run on the owning client, so how do I do that? Is locally controlled? Okay. Switch has authority. On authority, you want a delay because it doesn't know off the bat if it's locally controlled or not. You want it to be valid. The pawn, that's not necessary. Oh, I guess the pawn I want it to be, say is locally controlled. It's not an AI. Is that the ticket? Not sure if I need the delay here. That's on overlaps. Oh no, that's just for on begin play. No, that should be true. I need to delay it a little bit for the server to be able to tell that it is locally controlled. It needs that time. So I don't want. It doesn't matter about the is AI thing right now because it's not an overlap. And we do want it to be valid. We have a controller, so we can say get controlled pawn. So that's going to be low. In which case we would want 6, simple water 6. I think maybe I was going to make an even higher res one. Let me just make it 6 real quick. Okay, that's good. Is that the super low res one? No, this one is low res. This one's medium, I guess. This one's just, what's up with this one? Is this one of the broken ones? Yeah, this is a broken one. 3 and 2 are from the original. Maybe this is higher quality. Doesn't look like it. It doesn't run as smooth. I made these a while ago. I'm just trying to remember which one is which. I know 7 and 8 were like the good ones, so I'm not sure. Maybe I shouldn't even use this one. I should just make another one that's even higher quality. 7, 8. Yeah, I can do that. I don't know how terribly it'll run though. If I should make a lower res, low one. I think it's probably better to push it the other direction. Make that the high res one and go lower. Or make low and epic. That's probably the right thing to do. For now, we can just see if it worked. Okay. I don't think it's doing it at all. Maybe only on login. Well, no, because the server should have done that. I think. Maybe it's only being run on client login. The dispatcher. Let me see if the client can do it. The game didn't crash. It's always a good thing. Run towards the ocean. Let's just ride a horse. Oh, I forgot my character. Whatever. I got the horse. Oh, there's the character. It caught on eventually. I guess the server's busy. Or whatever. There it is. Alright. Because the character was logging in the first place. Should I just jump in there? No, I wanna. I wonder if sliding. Yeah, sliding animation works on client. That's nice. Sliding down the hill. How about falling off? Oh, yes. Yes, it did, indeed. Well, oh, okay. Okay, I need to stop sliding so I can see the ocean. Does the swimming work? The horse swimming sort of works. It sort of works. It's gonna get there. I haven't done anything to it yet to work purposely. It's just sort of accidentally kind of half works. So let's test the server option, the special option here. I don't see it changing. Oh, that's not it. Well, not call server login here. Well, okay, that's one thing. I have to go back to the map. Loading map speed increase was a temporary boon, I guess. It was really sweet. Maybe it was because of OBS. Because I was just like working on it by myself without the stream. And it wasn't this part of it, it was the playing the game part, but still. Alright, so I just want this to also bind event to server. Oh, look at that. Look at that. That would do it too. That would do it too. Where am I? Alright, and let's see, I also want to this is different, really. Can I do multiples? No. Wait, what the fuck? That might be why it's not working. Oh, okay. Just need to add controller here too. Compile, then refresh nodes. compile again. Turn the page, lick your finger, turn the page. If anybody ever saw Rocko's Modern Life, it's a classic. Missing out. Plug that in, that would be good. Wait, nope, these are all going to that controller. I'm gonna need another controller thing on here. I'll be surprised if this works, to be honest. There's just so many things in there to possibly miss.
Made of iron. Cool.
I just can't listen to this guy talk, I'm sorry. Same with this guy. But I'll check it out.
Hi guys, Matt Easton here, historical fencing instructor and researcher.
Oh my god.
Hi folks, Matt Easton here, Scholar Gladiatoria. So apologies I haven't been doing more videos recently, I've just been really busy and I don't know if you can tell but the tone of my voice is slightly different. I've just been repeatedly ill and it's really getting me down. It's nothing serious, it's just, you know, typical.
It's like Legend of Zelda. Oh my god. Something.
Hey everyone, Phil here. This is a video response to Andrew's video on warriors. Yes, warriors. And I completely agree. I think warriors should be diverse when it comes to the handling of their weapons. I really don't understand why they did that in 3.5, because if you look at the classes of the wizard, the bard, as well
I might not even be able to,
what other class was there? Monk. Even though they're not warriors, I know they're not warriors, but they specifically
change the mesh at
weapons that
runtime.
they can use. It's really
I wouldn't be
specifically listed
surprised.
weapons, as well as rogues. They did that with rogues as well. They specifically listed weapons that they can use. And with bards, they gave them the whip,
Oh, this might
which
have.
is an exotic weapon. And only one other class
That might
gets
be
to use an
why.
exotic weapon that I know of off the top of my head, and that would be the samurai. And that's the warrior class. But he's the only one out of the warrior class that gets to use an exotic weapon. And he's the only one out of the warrior type classes that can use.
let's talk a little bit about axe and sword. Hey folks, Matt Easton here, Scholar Gladiator. So apologies for not having uploaded any videos in the last few days. I've had a horrible flu, unfortunately, which knocked out my voice. And as you can imagine, for making videos, your voice is fairly important. But
Probably just can't change it at
I've
runtime.
noticed in lots of movies, and indeed things like
But maybe I
role-playing games
can
and books.
make it do it
But
at
additionally,
loading.
something that gets asked of me is, would an axe make a good offhand weapon? Or indeed, would an axe make a good dominant weapon if used with a sword? And of course this comes under the heading of dual wielding. And people in the modern day love dual wielding. Now, before we go into any discussion on dual wielding, we have to say the most dominant form of dual wielding with a sword should and was always with a shield. The shield and the sword work fantastically together. They work well as a weapon set against all other types of weapons.
I know this works,
If
because
it's
I've used it.
rapier and dagger, or spear and shield, or halberd, or what, longsword, whatever. Sword and shield are really, really formidable combinations.
This didn't get plugged in again.
It should be no surprise that when
How did
swords
that get
were
unplugged?
used in history, for
Thought I
most
just
of
did that.
history when swords were used, they
Little
were
random
used
things
with
everywhere.
shields. Now I'll talk a little bit more about that as a specific point in a future video. But just to say here that when we're making any discussions of dual wielding, the first thing we should say for the context is that the predominant form of sensible dual wielding is to do it with a shield. But let's assume for a second, for some reason, we either don't have a shield, we've lost our shield, we can't carry a shield. There are historical scenarios where that might be the case, and even if you're doing a role-playing game, or maybe it's a video game, whatever, there might be scenarios where you can't, or your character can't carry a shield. What might this be? Well, quite simply, in civilian life, you can in the medieval world, assuming you're legally able to, you're able to physically carry a sword around very easily. It's a sidearm, it's something you wear, as I've mentioned millions of times in my previous videos. So swords, one of the reasons that they were so ubiquitous and you know, popular and fit
I don't
into
think
so
it's
many different
doing
contexts
it.
is because they are sidearms, because you can wear them. You can't wear a spear, you can't really wear a longbow, and you can't wear a shield. Yes, you can wear a shield via what's called a guige, or a strap, which goes over, but in practical use, if you have a job to do, or you're travelling, or, you know, in everyday life, you can't realistically wear a shield. It's just not convenient. So for that reason, historically, swords were often paired up with other things. And what the sword gets paired with, at least in an unarmoured civilian context, is very often about what is also easy to carry. So what are the two things which we most often, or let's say three things, which we most often find coupled with a sword in civilian, or should we say self-defense, or kind of impromptu scenarios, are, number one, a buckler. That, you know what a buckler is, a small shield, which is easy to wear, unlike a big shield. Or a knife, dagger. So rapier and dagger, sword and dagger, very popular combinations, particularly in the Renaissance when people start wearing swords more. So sword and buckler, very common. Sword and dagger, very common. Slightly less common is if someone doesn't have anything at all as a secondary weapon, was the use of a cloak. I'll probably do, I have done a past video. If you search for sword and cloak,
Sword and cloak?
or the use of cloaks on my channel, you'll probably find that video. And
No way. I've never heard of that. Maybe I should take out some of this stuff. Did a lot of shit here. Could have gone wrong. Okay, it doesn't look nearly as cool here as you'd want it to. You gotta look dramatic when you're doing it.
Hi everyone, so I'm not wearing a cloak because it's Halloween. I'm actually wearing a cloak because I'm going to talk a little bit about the use of cloaks or capes in martial arts, in European martial arts and fencing. Okay, so most famously the cloak is known to be used alongside the rapier. Okay,
That's so
and
badass.
It's essentially used in let's say 3 basic ways. It's either used to chuck at the opponent as a prelude to attacking them, or throw onto their sword as a distraction. So, in actual fact, this kind of theory is shown earlier on with a hat in Hans Talhoffer's medieval fighting manual, where he actually throws a hat in someone's face before attacking them. Okay, but the other way to use it is essentially to, let's see if I can do this right, to wrap. There we go, around the arm. So you've got some fabric around the arm, but quite a lot dangling down in front of you. And you can essentially use that to catch the opponent's rapier thrust.
Just bypass that, just see if it works at all.
And put in your own thrust. And to just generally defend. You can also defend cuts quite well. Rapiers aren't very good at cutting in general, quite light blades. This is a real rapier and a real arm. I'm hitting myself quite hard, it hurts a little bit, but not too much. So you can, absorb rapier cuts quite easily without that much fabric wrapped around the arm. And the hanging folds are good for catching thrust and defending thrust, and very good for defending your legs as well. So essentially it's a kind of makeshift shield. The other thing to mention about it is the more you wrap around the arm, the more it's able to absorb cuts. So if someone was using a heavier cutting weapon at you, you could wrap the thing even more around your arm. And I should mention that this is mentioned in later 18th century sources, treatises, to use against broadswords and spadroons and things like this. And equally, it's advised in knife defence as a possible thing you can do if someone attacks you with a knife and you can't run away and there's no other options and you have to defend yourself. Then taking your coat off or your hoodie or whatever you're wearing, wrapping it around your left arm and using it as a defensive device is something that some people recommend. So essentially you can defend from thrusts with the hanging bits, you can defend from cuts with the bit wrapped around your arm, or you can throw the cloak onto either the other person or their weapon whilst you attack them or as a distraction. Incidentally, you could also do it, throw it in their face and then run away. Now, one last thing I want to mention is that whilst the rapier and cloak is quite famous and quite well known, what's less well known is that actually it's shown in earlier medieval art. And I've seen examples from the probably 12th century is the earliest example I've seen myself. But it goes
I have the map open.
Not only is it shown change swords to a more time-specific sword, not only is it shown in earlier medieval period, fighting against people, but it's also shown in a hunting context, presumably where someone has been travelling through a forest and suddenly a bear or a wolf or in certain other parts of the world, a lion or something has sprung out on them, and they've had to defend themselves in an unprepared way. So
there's that faster loading time.
And usually in the medieval sources, although there's a bit of cloth hanging down, it's usually wrapped even more around the arm. There we go, like that. And when it's wrapped very thickly around the arm, you can take quite a decent blow from quite a big heavy sword in the arm. And you use it essentially as...
Wow. Let's see. Nope, don't believe it worked.
Those two new houses.
Oh well, I was hoping that would work. Just set the mesh. I might have to do something fancy. It might be setting the... Maybe I could delete it and respawn it. I have to set its variables, whatever. I'll just be done with it for now. So much for trying to do server settings. Change the ocean mesh. That was stabbing high. Yeah, I need to like eat some food and stuff. Play some Fortnite. Did you see the asteroids? Did you see the asteroids in Fortnite? I'll see you guys. Oh, please don't forget to subscribe and join us on the Discord, which will link right there. Hopefully, nope, it's... Hold on, I'll put this up so that it links. Here's a real cloak and sword video.
Baby humpback whale can drink up to 130 gallons of milk each.
Шпаги звон, как звон бокала, с детства мне ласкает слух. Шпага многим показала, что такое прах и пух. Вжик, 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 хоп, уноси готовенького, вжик, вжик, вжик. Кто на новенького, кто на новенького.
Oh my god, what is this? It's old Russian troubadours. That's... You can't get any more ridiculous. Is this a movie called Cloak and Sword? I should watch it. Where's the cloak? Where's the cloak? Where's the cloak and sword that it was named after? Nobody does it nearly as badass as this screenshot. But maybe I can make it look badass. Take care.